Imagine places where cameras roll, but unseen stories unfold. 10 filming sites across the UK, each with secrets that linger long after the final cut. Ready to uncover what hides behind the scenes? 1. Elstree Studios. Nestled in the heart of Hertfordshire, just outside London's sprawling metropolis, lies Elstree Studios, a legendary hub of British film and television. From Star Wars to The Crown, this iconic studio has seen more stars pass through than the night sky over the Thames. But there is one presence who has never left. They call him the man in the fedora. No one knows his name. No photo has ever been taken. And yet ask any longtime crew member and they will tell you the same thing. He is real. It usually begins the same way. You are working late long after the last assistant director has shouted rap. The set is quiet. The green room is dark. But then a chill, a sound, the unmistakable echo of polished shoes on concrete. And then you see him, just for a moment, standing at the edge of the corridor, where the light does not quite reach. He wears a long coat, always a fedora tilted low. He never speaks, he never moves quickly, he just watches. In Studio D, one of the older stages, where The Shining was partially filmed, a lighting technician once claimed he saw the man standing between two light rigs. He assumed it was an extra, but when he turned to ask the assistant director, the figure had vanished. No doors opened, no footsteps, just gone. At first, people dismissed it. Imagination, sleep deprivation, maybe a touch too much strong tea. But the stories began to line up. From editors in the cutting room to cleaners on the graveyard shift, the same details returned. The hat, the silence, the feeling of being observed, not with menace, but with sorrow. Some believe he was an actor from the silent era, one of the many hopefuls who never made it past the stage door. Others say he was a director whose film was never completed, wandering forever between takes. But perhaps, in a way, he is Elstree, the spirit of storytelling itself, watching, waiting, ensuring that what began here so many decades ago never truly ends. And maybe that is the magic of Elstree, that even in the quietest corners of a soundstage, when the lights are off and the cameras are packed away, there is always someone still watching the story unfold. 2. 3 Mills Studios. They say film is a collaborative art, but at 3 Mills Studios, some stories seem to write themselves. Back in 2012, a production team moved into one of the older sound stages, the kind with creaking beams, stained curtains, and a silence that felt oddly alert. They were shooting a low-budget indie thriller. Simple script, few characters, clean structure. But then the rewrites began. It started small. A line of dialogue changed overnight. The assistant director assumed the screenwriter had updated the script, but he had not. Not consciously anyway. Then entire scenes appeared in the system, fully formatted, perfectly written, and completely unfamiliar to the writer. He checked his backups. The same text was there like it had always been, even on cloud storage from weeks prior. Then came the characters no one remembered creating. A woman in a green coat. A child who spoke in riddles. They were not in the original draft, but their names were suddenly on call sheets, wardrobe rails, even scheduled rehearsals. One night, the writer stayed late hoping to catch the prankster. But instead, he found something stranger. A single page on his desk, typed unsigned. It read, "Stories do not belong to writers. They belong to the place that wants them told." He kept it. The film wrapped. The final cut included the strange characters, the eerie subplots, and that cryptic ending he swore he never wrote. Critics called it hauntingly self-aware, but the writer does not take credit. He just says, 3 Mills knew the story better than I did. And maybe it did. 3. Bray Film Studios. Just beyond the River Thames in Berkshire sits a curious estate part country manor part cathedral of nightmares. This is Bray Film Studio's birthplace of Hammer Horror, the studio that redefined cinematic fear in the 1950s and 1960s. It is here that Christopher Lee first bared his fangs as Dracula, and where ancient castles, haunted laboratories, and fog-choked moors came to life under low-budget brilliance. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the darkness remained. There is a room, not a stage, not a set. A real room hidden above what used to be the wardrobe department just beneath the eaves of the manor house. It was not on any official blueprints, at least not until a structural survey in the early 2000s forced its rediscovery. Inside was dust-old costumes, rotting foam props, and also a tape recorder. Covered in wax, burned on one side, still functional, and on that tape, a scream. Not the type scripted in Hammer's heyday. No orchestral stabs, no dialogue, just a long, unbroken, inhuman wail, the kind that does not come from a throat, but from something deeper. A visiting sound designer heard it while exploring for a documentary. He later described the sound as something that remembered pain, but was not allowed to forget it. Some dismissed it as a prank, an old recording, but actors filming in the newly restored wings of Bray have reported hearing the same scream during night shoots, usually around 2:17 a.m., always when filming horror scenes. One grip swore he saw a woman in Victorian morning dress walk between set walls during a take. Everyone thought she was background. She never appeared on the footage, and yet no one seems afraid, not in the way you might expect. Perhaps it is because Bray was always meant to dance with ghosts, to pull them into the light, to give fear a shape, and then, like a magician's trick, fold it back into shadow. As one old director put it, Bray is not haunted by spirits. It is haunted by stories, and stories, like blood, leave stains you cannot quite scrub out. So the next time you walk through those halls and the air feels thick with memory, do not run. You are not alone, but you are in good company. A company of screams, flickering candles, and the eternal beautiful terror of imagination. Fourth Denham Film Studios. Once hailed as the future of British cinema, Denham Film Studios opened in the 1930s with the kind of ambition you would expect from Hollywood, with vast sound stages, state-of-the-art equipment, and dreams as tall as its rafters. Here, the greats passed through David Lean, Alfred Hitchcock Powell, and Pressburger. At its peak, Denham was not just a studio, it was a temple to storytelling. But temples fade. By the late 1950s, productions slowed. The lights dimmed, some buildings were repurposed, others fell into quiet decay. But not all of Denham's stars packed up and left. They still talk about the woman at the balcony. It is always the same description. A tall woman in a floor-length white evening gown, hair pinned high in a 1940s chignon, standing motionless on the upper balcony of Stage 2. Always just before dawn, always alone. She has been seen by caretakers, visiting production scouts, even local schoolchildren who broke in on a dare. No one ever sees her move. She simply stands, watching the empty stage below as if waiting for the cue that never comes. For years, her identity was pure speculation. But then came the letter. In 1981, during minor renovations, workers uncovered a small dressing room, long sealed shut. Inside were moldering scripts, a cracked vanity mirror, and a handwritten letter tucked into the frame. It was addressed simply to the man who never turned up. The contents have never been made public, but the discovery reignited rumors of an actress, a rising starlet from the wartime era, who vanished mid-production. No official record, no obituary, just gone. Some say she died of heartbreak. Others think she was never real at all, a character written into Denham's own myth. But maybe, just Maybe she is still waiting for that final scene, for the director to shout action one last time, for the lights to rise, for the house to applaud. And until that day comes, she stands, poised, elegant, unmoving, a final echo of Denham's golden age. 5. Ealing Studios. Ealing Studios, charming, historic, and deeply British, has been telling stories for over a century. But there is one story they do not put on the tour. It is about a corridor. Tucked behind a set wall near Studio B, it is easy to miss. Just a stretch of hall with faded carpet, chipped plaster, and an old fire exit sign that buzzes faintly. But something about it does not behave normally. One runner swore it took her 15 seconds to walk down and over a minute to walk back. A director claimed the light above flickered in Morse code, spelling out words no one could quite translate. A sound technician recorded footsteps, but when played back, they were in reverse. The oddest reports come from those who have looked into the old mirror, mounted halfway along the corridor. It is cracked antique, and no one knows why it is still there. People report seeing themselves, but not quite. A different haircut, an older version. Sometimes a bruise that was not there before, or a look in their eyes they did not recognize. One actor, on his way to set, took the corridor by mistake. He stepped in and came out of the same door seconds later, pale, shaking. He said the corridor went on much longer than it should have. Said he saw other doors, ones he knew were not there. And in one of them, he heard himself rehearsing lines from a role he never auditioned for. Some believe it is a fold in time. Others say it is an echo, the studio remembering everything it has ever seen. Ealing has been rebuilt many times, but that section, no blueprints exist. No one remembers who designed it. Maybe it was always there. Maybe it does not want to be noticed, just experienced. So if you ever find yourself at Ealing Studios and you come across a corridor that seems to lead nowhere, maybe just turn back. Because some spaces do not move forward. They loop. And sometimes, so do we. 6. Black Island Studios. There is a silence at Black Island Studios that feels different from other places. Not the silence of a set waiting for action, but the kind that settles in when something has been forgotten or left behind. Black Island is a modern facility, all steel beams and industrial power. It is built for speed, for car chases, explosions, big loud storytelling. And yet behind all that noise, there is a quiet place. Unit 4A, it is not haunted in the way films like to show. No footsteps, no shadows, no cold drafts brushing the back of your neck. Just a door and a man, or rather, the idea of one. The first report came in 2009. A runner, young, eager, first job on set, got locked in during a foggy night shoot. The latch jammed behind him, phone dead, no signal. But before panic set in, he heard someone on the other side. Not shouting, just breathing. He called out, "Can you open it?" Silence. Then quietly, a man's voice. "I have been trying." When they finally opened the door from the outside, there was no one else inside. The runner had been completely alone. It happened again in 2013 and again in 2017. Always the same unit, always the same calm male voice, always the same words. "I have been trying." Some think it is a recording, a prank left over from a sound test. Others are not so sure. You see, before, it was a studio. This land was part of a wartime industrial zone. Some say munitions were stored here. Others whisper about accidents, cover-ups, names lost in paperwork and time. But even without history, there is something about a man who is always trying to get out, but never does. He never screams, never begs, just waits and answers when you speak. Softly, as if you are the one who is late. And maybe that is the real story. Not of a ghost trapped in a room, but of us, the ones who come and go, who chase scenes, lights and deadlines, while something else waits in the quiet in the dark, asking only to be heard. So if you ever find yourself at Black Island Studios near Unit 4A and the latch sticks, do not be afraid. You will not be alone. And if you hear a voice say, "I have been trying," it is polite to answer. 7. Govan Dry Dock Film Set. In Glasgow's Govan Dry Dock, the air is thick with old stories and steel dust. This forgotten shipyard turned film set has seen generations of workers come and go, sweat on steel hammers on hulls, and the rhythmic buzz of welding torches echoing across the Clyde. But some say one worker never left. They call him the welder. No one's ever seen his face, but his work, that's harder to miss. During late-night shoots, crews have noticed odd things. A perfect line of welding on a rusted beam that hadn't been touched. The lingering scent of burning metal in the cold night air tools moved ever so slightly from where they were left. And sometimes the unmistakable flash of blue just at the edge of frame. They checked security footage. Nothing. Just an empty dock. Except for the sound, a faint clang, hiss clang, like someone working patiently in the dark. The legend traces back to a man named Thomas McRae, a welder from the 1940s. He was proud, meticulous, and always the last to leave the shift. One night, a beam gave way. He was crushed beneath the very ship he was building. He died before he could finish the keel, the ship's spine. Some believe that task still binds him to the dock. Not out of vengeance, not anger, just unfinished business. One director, after wrapping a maritime drama there, found that certain welding seams didn't match the crew's plans. They were better, cleaner, stronger, almost like they'd been done by someone who knew that ship inside out. When told the story of McRae, the director only smiled. Well, he said, "At least someone here still believes in craftsmanship. No cold spots, no jump scares, just quiet hands working by memory." Perhaps that's what makes Govan different. It's not haunted by fear, but by dedication. And maybe, just maybe, some jobs are worth finishing, no matter how long they take. 8. The Bottle Yard Studios. They call it the Bottle Yard because long ago it was just that, a bottling plant. Factories, carts, the clink of glass, the hiss of steam. But time moved on. The workers left. The stories didn't. Today, the Bottle Yard Studios is all painted lines and bright lights, the heartbeat of TV in the southwest. Broadchurch, Poldark, Wolf Hall, all filmed here. Busy, buzzing, full of life. And yet every now and then, someone sees her by the service lift in Building 2. Not the main lift, not the one the crew uses. The old one. The heavy metal door with flaking paint and a button that never lights up. She stands just beside it. Not in front, not blocking, just waiting. She's older, perhaps 50. Hair in a bun, pale skirt suit, 1940s style, with gloves and a handbag. Always the same, never speaking, never moving. Just looking straight ahead, as if she's late for something. Security caught her once on CCTV. Or so the rumor goes. When they played it back, there was nothing there, just a glitch, a distortion near the door. The footage warped, like something had brushed against the air itself. One production runner swears he tried to speak to her, thought she was a background artist waiting to be called. He looked away to check the schedule on his phone. By the time he looked up, gone. No footsteps, no door opening. Just an empty corridor and the dull hum of the lift motor that hasn't worked in 30 years. There are theories, of course, that she was a clerk who worked in the bottling office during the war, that she died waiting for her fiancé to return, or for her shift to end, or maybe she never left at all. Not because she was trapped, but because she had a reason to stay. Some say she appears more often during wrap days when the cast is leaving, the props are packed, and the studio starts to go quiet again. as if she's checking, making sure everything's still in order, that nothing's been forgotten. And maybe that's who she is. Not a ghost, but a witness. To time, to change, to the way the world keeps spinning, even when we no longer do. So if you're ever walking past the lift in Building 2 and feel like someone's beside you, don't rush. Just pause. She won't ask for anything. She never does. But in a place built on stories, she's one you don't need to write. You just need to remember. 9. Longcross Film Studios. Longcross Film Studios doesn't feel like London. It feels older, colder, still, set deep in Surrey, surrounded by trees that have stood longer than most careers. It's a place where stories take on scale, high-speed chases, spy thrillers, alien worlds. But ask any night shoot crew and they'll tell you the real tension begins off-set. Just past the perimeter fence, where the pine trees begin, they call it the line. Not marked on any map, but everyone who works there knows it. The place where your walk slows, where the radio crackles, where birds go silent. They say a man watches from those trees, not moving, not hiding, just standing. Tall, dressed in dark olive, cap pulled low, sometimes holding something, a clipboard or maybe a rifle. He's always just outside the light, just beyond clear focus. Some believe he's a remnant from Longcross's military past, a soldier left behind, or worse, never stood down. Decades ago, this land was part of a military proving ground. Tanks were tested here. Covert training took place under classified silence. Some say it was also used for psychological experiments. Others say something went wrong and was quietly buried beneath the soil. But buried things don't always stay still. One assistant director spotted him while walking back from a second unit shoot at dusk, thought he was security, called out. No answer. Next time, he looked gone. Not vanished, just no longer there. CCTV doesn't catch him. Dogs refuse to go near that side of the lot. And every so often, someone finds boot prints. Deep, fresh, leading into the forest. Never back out. But here's what's strange. No one's ever felt threatened. Watched, yes. Observed, certainly. But never chased. As if the man isn't there to haunt. He's there to guard. And maybe, after all the scripts and stages and special effects, Longcross still belongs just a little to someone who never left his post. So if you're on set, and the wind shifts, and the trees feel too still, don't stare too long into the woods. He's not part of the crew. He's not on the call sheet. But he's there, and always has been. 10. Shepperton Studios North. Shepperton Studios is a well-oiled machine. There are spreadsheets, schedules, security passes. Nothing gets on set without being checked, scanned, signed off. Well, almost nothing. Over the past 15 years, there's been a running joke at Shepperton. A man, middle-aged, flat cap, waistcoat, big smile, always holding a cup of tea. He shows up in the background, always just out of focus. In scenes he has absolutely no business being in. A medieval market in a fantasy film, there he is by the hay cart, sipping tea. A sterile sci-fi control room. He's behind the engineer, looking mildly impressed. A rom-com set in modern-day London. He's crossing the street, still holding the same teacup. No one ever casts him. No one ever hires him. But somehow, he appears. They've checked security footage, wardrobe logs, background casting sheets. Nothing. He's not there. And yet, he's there. Some believe he's an eccentric local with a gift for blending in. Others say he's a leftover spirit of old British cinema, a man so in love with filmmaking, he simply refuses to leave. One theory suggests he's the ghost of a former extra who never got his close-up. But this ghost doesn't haunt. He photobombs. Editors have started calling him T-Guy. There's even a group chat where people post screenshots when they spot him. Scene 28, behind the horse, slightly blurry, but still smiling. End credits of episode 4, walking across frame with a custard cream. And the thing is, no one's annoyed. Directors leave him in, not always visibly, sometimes just his shoulder, his cup a flicker of motion. Why? Because he makes people smile. Because in a world of retakes, perfection and pressure, he reminds everyone that sometimes the joy is in the background. That a film set isn't just about stars and stunts and story arcs, it's about people passion. And maybe a man in a flat cap who just really likes being part of it all. So next time you watch a blockbuster and think, wait, who's that bloke with the tea? Just smile. He's not a mistake. He's tradition. The unscripted spirit of Shepperton. And honestly, the scene's better with him in it. Every studio hides its own secrets, some whispered, some unseen. If you enjoyed these stories, please like, subscribe, and share your own creepy tales below. Thanks for watching Creepy Experience. Stay curious and watch closely. You never know what's just beyond the frame.